Let's talk about this new Earl Sweatshirt album, Live, Laugh, Love. One of the greatest writers in modern hip-hop history returns here to close out what's been an excellent summer of 2025 for hip-hop. He gives us one of his most solid efforts in years, adding to what's already a very solid catalog. Ironic title aside, Live, Laugh, Love shows Earl Sweatshirt at a moment of personal growth. It's very refreshing. For an artist who we are used to seeing show his struggles, show his issues, wear his heart on his sleeve, we get a sense of personal progression on this album, all the while Earl maintains his pen as one of the mightiest and strongest in the rap game. So how did Earl Sweatshirt get to this point where he's dropping an introspective album that shows personal growth, that shows that maturity, that progression as an artist? Well, we can trace Earl's artistic beginnings all the way back to around 2010, which is the same year that he dropped his much celebrated debut mixtape Earl, as he was part of the Odd Future collective that was burgeoning at that time. That mixtape from 2010 hasn't really aged very well. There's some very transgressive language and subject matter on there, but it really did establish Earl as this unique, witty rapper. And it was after that that his parents actually sent him, he was like 16 years old at the time, sent him to Samoa for a school for troubled kids. He did not reemerge until 2012. He was on the island for over a year, I think. But in 2013, he ended up dropping his next album, Doris, which is a very seminal record and a very important part of his discography. It broke him out as one of the most technically sound rappers from the West Coast during a time where the West Coast was kind of resurging and having some major creative output in the first half of the 2010s. Doris featured a number of high-profile guest appearances, and of course it was also inflated by the fact that Odd Future was popping off at that time, with names like Tyler, the Creator, and Frank Ocean really holding it down for the collective. He kind of stepped away from Odd Future in the mid-2010s, and he actually started to really struggle mentally. His mental health was a big topic on his 2015 album, the seminal I Don't Like Shit, I Don't Go Outside. It's dark, it's daunting, it's a masterpiece, honestly, but it really does show Earl's suffering. It was one of the most nihilistic hip-hop albums I had heard in a long time. It almost reminds me of that noir rap that we got from a lot of New York rappers in the 90s. Around that same time, he released what is one of the most seminal and celebrated EPs of all time, any genre, Solace, which was just a highly emotional, deeply dark, depressing experimental hip-hop project, which is among his finest work. So with his reputation as a rapper from the dark side fully intact, and after making some huge guest appearances off of Freddie Gibbs and Madlib's 2014 album Pinata and Danny Brown's 2016 album Atrocity Exhibition, Earl went ahead in 2018 and dropped his version of a seminal, important 2010s hip-hop album, Some Rap Songs, which is, with those albums I just mentioned, one of the most heralded albums of that decade. So in my eyes, that was Earl Sweatshirt's peak. He really hasn't been able to replicate that quality of material that we got between I Don't Go Outside and Some Rap Songs, as well as Solace. He dropped another EP in 2019, Feet of Clay. I was kind of underwhelmed by that. I did like his pandemic-themed project in 2022. That was the album Sick. He did have a very strong collaboration album with The Alchemist in 2023 on Voir Dire. He's made a ton of guest appearances. He's been a lot more active here in the 2020s. And fortunately, it does seem like Earl Sweatshirt's mental health has improved a bit. This is very evident on Live, Laugh, Love. It's a new side of a normally dark rapper that we get. In recent years, he's become a father, he's become a family man, and that little snot-nosed kid that we were first introduced to back in 2010, and many of us grew to know and love, is now 31 years old. He's a father, he's a partner. So this latest album gives us a nice look into what a wiser, older, and more established Earl Sweatshirt sounds like. And it really does show not just growth as a person, but growth as an artist. I think this is his finest project in years. Let's talk about why. So right from the start on the opener, GSW versus SAC, you can hear that Earl sounds like a different man. He sounds like he's actually smiling as he's rapping. It's a really nice, refreshing change to kick off the album. He throws at the listener his normal brand of abstract, quirky, cryptic bars in that unmistakable delivery that borders on mumble rap sometimes, but kind of does so in a cerebral way, if you will. And he's off the bat not as dark, as depressing as he's known to be. Of course, he wasn't really like that on Voir Dire or Sick quite as much. He instantly sounds more mature and actually more established as a rapper at the same time. And with negative mental health being kind of a central theme in his past projects, this does kind of show a newer, brighter side of Earl, its artistic progression, at least that's how I see it. Forge is the second track. It's another quick offering, another bite-sized minute and a half or so tempo runtime. It's got a more menacing beat from the producer Theravada, who produced the opener, actually produced the first 4 tracks on this album. We get some more confident, almost like smart-ass bars from Earl, which of course he's also known for as much as his dark side. And Forge kind of shows that this album is going to be sonically diverse. Every track is not going to sound like the last one. Not that that's really been a problem on his past records. The track Infatuation cues up a nice soul sample from Theravada, and by this time I'm starting to get the impression that we're getting an album that's about as close to some rap songs as anything that he's done since then. And of course, that's a good thing because that's an amazing album. Again, bite-sized, like 1 to 2 minute songs. There's a lot of things packed into his lyrics. It's very dense. It's hard to unpack. The beats are also complex. His lyrical themes are starting to support the idea that he's happier. He's also very confident. He feels more centered, and his prowess as a writer feels like it's definitely expanding. And Earl already has a very strong pen game, and I really feel like that's one of the main strengths of this album is he really evolved his writing style, which had already been pretty well developed, but it seems like it's really on point on Live, Laugh, Love. We get even more confident bars showing up on the 4th track, Gamma. Earl gives us kind of a more upbeat vibe than I've heard on pretty much any of his albums. He gives a random shout out to the late Trugoy the Dove from De La Soul. That was a nice little touch, I thought. He bakes in a number of dense, meaningful, cryptic metaphors into yet another quick track. You blink your eyes, we're already on the 5th track, Well Done. We're like 8 minutes into the album by this time. A lot has happened so far. The track is produced by Earl's friend, rapper, and producer Navy Blue. It's another short song, just over a minute in length. And then we get to the 6th track. I think it's called Live. It might be Live, not really sure. It's the first song that's more than 2 minutes long. It's the first of 2 consecutive tracks that are produced by Black Noise. It's on this track that Earl finally gets a chance to open up a little bit lyrically. We get 2 verses from him. He first does this over a nice down-tempo shuffle where he gets pretty personal in his lyrics, gets a little bit less cryptic, a little more straightforward, and starts to kind of allude to his former self who was younger, more depressed, darker, less mature, confused, trying to figure it out. And then there's a beat switch in the middle. We kind of get a little bit more of an electronic beat for the second half. He changes his pitch in cadence to a slower, lower voice delivery. We get also more of like a mumble heavy delivery. Now, Earl's been known to mumble at times, especially on some rap songs, so this really is a throwback to his magnum opus. And on the second half of this track, he kind of further talks about that personal growth and sort of the man that he's become. At the end of the song, he asks the listener to sort of relax, groove with him, live a little. It's a nod to the fact that Earl is feeling better mentally, and he's kind of trying to push more of a positive message than he ever has in his music. Interesting note right here at the end of Live or Live or whatever it's called, we hear an interesting sample. This is a vocal sample from apparently an old Brazilian TV network that plays whenever the national soccer, basketball, whatever sports team is having a broadcast. Now, so what? What's the significance of this sample of this Brazilian broadcast? Brazil! Rapper JPEG Mafia actually used this esoteric sample on his 2024 album I Lay Down My Life For You, particularly on that album's track It's Dark and Hell Is Hot. Now, JPEG Mafia is known for kind of being outspoken. I love him. I think he's awesome, but he likes to stir things up. He recently, within the last couple of months, made a comment that Earl Sweatshirt and The Alchemist have been making the same song for 20 years. And he did it in a malicious, sort of derogatory way. Of course, Alchemist producing Voir Dire, the last album by Earl Sweatshirt before this one. So Earl and producer Black Noise's use of this sample at the end of Live Live is most likely a nod to JPEG Mafia. Earl is acknowledging that he heard Peggy's comments, he doesn't appreciate it, he's sort of mocking him by using that same very esoteric deep sample. I think it's an unmistakable jab at JPEG Mafia. There's probably some budding conflict between Earl and Peggy, which sucks because they're both 2 of my favorite artists. But in the midst of this personal awakening for Earl, we also see him involved in some potential industry conflict. On with it now, the album's 7th track, Static, is another more confident and shorter song. He gets into a quick, triumphant verse, possibly building off of that bravado from the Peggy diss, or whatever you want to call it. Earl pulls no punches in his lyrics. He's not really directly going at anybody. He's just kind of railing off some confident bars, which is really nice and refreshing to hear. He's further showing the range of his pen, how it can be used for both good and evil. On Crisco, the 8th track, we get another rare 2-verse performance from Earl on this album. It's in the second verse, he snaps like he hasn't yet on this album. There's moments on all of his other albums where he just goes off lyrically, and Crisco is that moment for me here on Live, Laugh, Love. We get relentless Earl on here with a very dense, efficient flow that delivers some strong bars in just a short period of time. The second verse alludes to his issues as a child and kind of alludes to an abusive stepfather. together, and the passion and the credence in which he delivers these lines in the second verse is one of the things I love about Earl, that he's capable of that. Sometimes he just gets so deep in his bag, so emotional and angry at the same time, and he does this perfectly on Crisco. My favorite song on the album is the 9th track, Tourmaline. This is produced again by Theravada. It's a beautifully lush, it's an emotional instrumental, features some nice string samples. It's like much of his lyrical performances to this point. You're not really quite sure what he's talking about. It's very esoteric and deep. There's metaphors, there's double entendres, hidden meanings. But upon further inspection, he's using that reference to tourmaline, which is like a mineral that comes in all types of different colors, to describe his background, his diversity as a person, his growth as a person, the way he's evolved as an artist and as an individual, and even to describe the fusion, the bonding that makes a mineral like tourmaline between him and his significant other. There are many references, not just on this track, but throughout the album, to fatherhood, but here he talks directly about his partner. He delivers the line, "She found me on the streets, she laughed, kept my feet grounded for my sweet child," in the song's chorus, giving us further, albeit relatively cryptic, insights into the fact that 2025 Earl is a different force than what we've dealt with before. He's no longer a victim of his own struggles. He's got his attention squarely centered on his family and raising his child, and he shows us just what's important and significant to him in his life as he moves into his early 30s. It's frankly a nice change of pace for an artist that's given us some of the most candid and frankly painful moments in hip-hop history. He's been very self-reflective, he's been very hard on himself, and after hearing a song like Tourmaline, it's very refreshing to hear him doing better. It's very evident that he's doing better, and I'm genuinely happy for it, because Earl Sweatshirt seems like a good type of person who has just kind of put himself in his own way along the way in life. I'm an anxiety sufferer, I've had issues with mental health, so I can sort of relate. So things like this, these expressions from an artist, are fairly personal for me. The child actor produced Heavy Metal, aka Ejectocito, seems to be another nod to how Earl has changed, and he repeats the mantra, "I released it," in the song's chorus. He makes further references to his child, his new role as a father. It's another testament to really what we got on Tourmaline about how Earl is really changing and growing. It's once again a very special and fulfilling thing to hear. That Brazilian vocal sample inconspicuously makes an appearance at the end of the song. It's kind of a weird juxtaposition for such a personal, kind of introspective track, kind of showing that he's still got Peggy in the back of his head maybe. And even though it shows that he's changed as a person, he's matured, he's not going to let anybody disrespect him. The final track, Exhaust, features a beautiful, lush vocal sample. This is actually the only track on the album that Earl Sweatshirt contributed production to. In the past, on albums like I Don't Go Outside and some rap songs, Earl contributed most of the production. He's a very talented producer. But here he only gives what's actually half a track, because Navy Blue has a co-production credit on here too. Exhaust kind of shows Earl letting off steam, or exhaust if you will, kind of just wrapping the album up, letting us know about his personal life, letting us know that yes, he's somebody who struggled in the past, but now he's no longer doing that. He's translated this into maturity and growth as he enters his 30s, and he talks about this. He's very candid about it on this last song. He does this in kind of a confident, upstanding way, and we get shades of that direct, straightforward, old Earl Sweatshirt, who was able to deliver these scathing, assertive bars, delivering them with conviction while mixing in that emotional reflectivity. This reflectivity is best demonstrated in the final lines of the album. At the end of the day, it's really just whatever you think. I'm airmailing you strength. It's a very fitting closer. It's one that leaves the listener with the impression that while we see that same confident, clever rapper with a pen as sharp as nails, we're also dealing with a more refined, mature, and healing version of Earl Sweatshirt. Live, Laugh, Love is a title that's most likely mocking that mainstream white girl culture in the 2010s, but while it's kind of a funny tongue-in-cheek reference, it's a deeper illusion that Earl makes that shows he's finally actually ready to do these things, to live and to love. And for somebody who struggled to do that and do simple things like laugh maybe in the past, Earl's kind of saying that yes, now I'm finally ready to do these things. I'm out of my own way. I've dealt with some of the issues, the traumas that I had. He seems like he's living comfortably. He seems like he's distributing his love to the people who deserve it the most. This personal growth, it's just a major central theme on the album. The cover shows that same old Earl Sweatshirt that we know and love, smoking a joint, but looking a little older, looking a little more refined. And he's basically saying, here I am, this is who I am now, this is the Earl Sweatshirt that you guys know and love, but I'm changing. We have an updated, revamped version of Earl. It's Earl Sweatshirt 2.0 as far as I'm concerned. And you know, I love albums where you see an artist growing personally. We saw it with Danny Brown. His 2016 album, Atrocity Exhibition, was crazy. It was drug-addled, but at the same time, it was kind of like a cry for help. And it really showed him suffering and struggling, although he kind of was partying his way through it. He released an album 3 years later called You Know What I'm Saying, which showed a just much happier and lighter version of Danny Brown. Apparently, he was dealing with some serious serious substance abuse issues, which I think he temporarily solved before relapsing. But that growth between those two albums and between 3 years showed Danny kind of as a new man and feeling better and happier. And you sort of get that a little bit here on Live, Laugh, Love with Earl, but it seems like Earl has been through kind of more brutal self-doubt, and it seems like he's finally saying, yes, okay, it's my time to feel better. It took long enough. Here I am. The verdict for me is that this is Earl's most impressive album since 2018's Some Rap Songs. I'd probably slide this into his top 3 overall, behind Some Rap Songs and I Don't Go Outside. Of course, this one has a little bit different of a demeanor. Some Rap Songs was cryptic, it was abstract, but it was also very sad. I Don't Go Outside was a little more straightforward, but it was way darker. He's on this new level of personal transcendence here. He's not afraid to reestablish himself, though, to the listener as this confident, commanding rapper who demands your attention, who can write these scathing but cryptic bars. In my eyes, Earl Sweatshirt has long been one of the most talented writers in the entire rap game, and he continues to establish himself in that light here on Live, Laugh, Love. His pen is just as impressive and consistent as it ever has been. It's his main strength. I expected a very strongly written album, but to see that personal growth, it's a really nice touch. Just like a lot of his projects, this is a dense project, but it's very short, clocking in at just under 25 minutes. It's a very convenient listen. You can listen to it 3 times in the same amount of time that sometimes it takes to listen to one album. If there's one criticism I have about Earl Sweatshirt's albums, it's that a lot is thrown at you at once. It's very dense. It can be very hard to grasp. And that's really no exception here on Live, Laugh, Love, but it is a small nitpicky thing that I'm just going to mention. You'll need multiple listens to really unpack this and understand it. That's not really a bad thing. It gives this thing tremendous replay value. And for me, retroactively, as an album ages, that's one of the most important things that you can have. I will say that the beat selection on this album wasn't quite as strong as I would have hoped it to be. There have been some real banger beats on his past albums. Again, a lot of them were self-produced. I was fairly underwhelmed by some of the production here. Tourmaline is a great song. That's a beautiful instrumental. And while the rest of them aren't bad by any means, they still do leave a little something to be desired. But anyway, the production is mostly solid, and you put this together with his evolved writings that show this personal growth, and we have a very good album here. I think this is one of the stronger offerings in his catalog. I'd give Live, Laugh, Love a B+ or an 87 to 89 numerically. So how do you feel about Earl Sweatshirt's latest album, Live, Laugh, Love? How does the album make you feel when you listen to it? Do you have a personal connection to any of the things he's saying? Comment for me down below. This is a really interesting album that's going to take a while still to unpack, so I'm wondering how you guys feel about it as well. Let's talk about it. I'm glad we got such a strong, confident, and ultimately mature effort from one of my favorite rappers in the game right now. He's one of the strongest writers in hip-hop. He continues to prove it here, and man, it's been fun discussing Live, Laugh, Love with you guys. Thanks again for tuning in.